Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar on planned giving. I hope you're either enjoying the nice spring weather or the last remainder of winter, such as we are experiencing here in the Niagara region. My name is Andrew Alexander. I've been serving with Operation Mobilization since 2007, both in Zambia and in Canada. Many attending today's webinar have been partnering with OM have been with OM for 10, 20, 30 years or even longer. And I think it's fair enough to say that all of OM's projects and ministries and programs are able to exist and to have an impact because of you. Thank you for your prayers and for financially supporting OM ministries and missionaries. And not only are you supporting OM, you're supporting this mission to see least reached communities hear about Jesus and become followers of him. And then from there to take this to the people next door and across the world in different ways. In today's webinar, we will be hearing in a little while from Rob Enema, who's the CEO of Link Charity, on the topic of planned giving. And planned giving is the process of making a charitable gift as part of one's financial or estate planning. And these gifts require a little bit more thinking, more planning, and more financial advice than many other gifts. And I guess that's why they are called planned gifts. Okay, feel free to grab some paper, a pen, or just your hot drink, a coffee or a cup of tea. And right now I have the privilege to welcome Rob Enema. It's good to have you with us here, Rob. It's good to hear more about Link Charity and planned giving. Link Charity and OM have been working in partnership at arm's length for, I think, just over a decade, I believe. And I really appreciate the time that you have taken today to prepare and also to share more in detail with us about Link Charity and about planned giving. Hi, Rob.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll introduce myself. As Andrew has already mentioned, my name is Rob Enema. I'm the CEO currently at Link Charity Canada. As I bring up, and I'm going to share my screen for everyone. And as Andrew said, we've been in partnership with OM for just over a decade. I think it was about 2010, working alongside and helping wherever we can. To give you a little bit of an update, I've been with Link Charity for a couple years now. Before that, I sat on the board of directors for Link Charity as I was the representation for another member charity and have been in the fundraising world for probably just over a decade myself. So some of what I am going to be talking about, I'm sure some of you will know about. This is I try to bring this across so that it's easy to understand, but again, as Andrew mentioned, feel free to catalog your questions and I'm more than willing to answer them. I know that a couple have already come through before the meeting, and yeah, I'm looking forward to helping wherever I can. So who is Link Charity? Some of you may or may not have heard of us. Link Charity, we've been around since 1998. We are a registered charity providing valuable services by operating as a link between donors and their charities. We try to be very much donor focused, but we want to make sure that the charities are looked after the best as possible. We are a member-run organization. This is actually not correct. I've actually updated it, but we are currently sitting at around 50 member charities from across Canada. And we help to bring education, guidance to those who would like to give more strategically. Like Andrew mentioned about planned giving, sometimes just hearing how other people have done it or worked it can really help with giving strategic ideas on how you can maybe leave a legacy or even give a specific gift. Some of this information you might not be able to hear from your financial planner or maybe a lawyer, especially when you're talking about wills and estates and that sort of thing. So hopefully, if anything, this will provide you ideas to even bring up when you do meet with your lawyer or talking with your financial advisor. So the main focus that Link Charity has is around gifts of securities, okay? Donor-advised funds, or DAFs, as we call them, charitable gift annuities, and letters of direction. Now, I'm going to be touching in detail on each one of these. I do have a time limit though, so please note that if there's anything that I didn't cover and you want to know more about, feel free to reach out to me. So just to give you an idea of Link Charity, last year in our fiscal year, we had over $17 million flow through Link Charity in terms of gifts of securities or charitable gift annuities that got distributed. And that went to over 960 different charities. So even to answer one of the questions that came even prior, if a gift comes to Link Charity, it doesn't specifically always have to go to one of our member charities. It can go to one of the 85,000 different charities that are across Canada. So moving along, the first topic I want to talk about is the will, the importance of the will. And the reason for that is because they say that in the next 2 decades, there's going to be 3.5 million Canadians that are expected to die, or we can say are going to be with the Lord, and leaving an estimated of $1.5 trillion to families in their communities. And this is important to know because it wasn't until about the year 2020 that it finally transitioned from billions of dollars to actual trillions of dollars. And that's because of the average house costs have skyrocketed, as you guys probably all very well know. And that's why we need to talk about this, because they say that only 30% of people have an up-to-date will. And to be honest, most people that have their will, they would have met with their lawyer and they might be married, and they say, well, when I die, it goes to my wife or to my spouse, and if she dies, then it goes to me, and if we're both dead, it goes to the children. And that's all well and good, but if we can try to think a little bit more strategically and how you can maybe add charity to that, and I'm going to go over some of the benefits of that. And 11% of people who have a will have included a gift to charity. So we definitely want to try to increase that number. And that's mainly because just the information isn't readily being advertised. The lawyers aren't really talking about it, as I mentioned, and neither are financial planners. So in life, okay, as you probably well know, you can give up to 75% of your income in a year, okay? And you get a charitable tax receipt for that, and you can get a benefit. But not everyone knows that in death, you can give 100%. Not that everyone is going to give 100%. We do have families and other things that you want to look after, but it's good to know that that is an option. And not only that, for a side note, is if you have any receipts that you can't use in the current year because you've gone over, in the year of your death, you can actually, the executor will be able to go back and use those outstanding receipts as well. So you can offset taxes to the government through charitable giving while still leaving money to your loved ones. That's one question I always liked to ask people when I would meet with them back in the day. I'd always say, so what 2 parties do you think are being looked after when the Lord calls you home? And immediately they would always say, well, my kids. And then they would have to think. And then they'd usually get a smile on their face and they would say, oh yes, and the government. And that's exactly right. And really, you should turn that around. It should be the government's going to be looked after first, and then your children and everyone else. So if you can think more about charitable giving rather than government giving, that's kind of the approach that I'm looking at. So what is so important about having a will? And this isn't part of the slide, but I'm just going to give some ideas of why it's important to have a will. And believe it or not, I have met people in their 80s that are sitting on 200 acres with kids, and they still haven't had a will. So believe it or not, there are people out there that just haven't taken the time to have a will. And so if you're one of those, which I'm hoping that none of you are, but this is, I'm hoping, going to encourage you to get out there and create a will. So it creates conversation, okay, number one. And the conversations are going to be between you. It's going to be between your loved ones, your children. I know just a couple years ago, my parents redid their will, and I remember sitting down with them. They're just like, okay, this is kind of the plan. And the nice thing about having that conversation is your children will also get to hear your heart and what moves your heart in terms of, if you are leaving money to charity, okay, well, that's what moves your heart, you know, digging wells or planting churches or what have you. So it also allows them to know why you're doing what you're doing. Number two, you get to decide who your executor is. It's not going to be decided by the court. Who the power of attorney is in your estate, who you want to have decisions over medical stuff when maybe at a time in which you can't. Number three, it allows you to create an emergency plan for dependents. Maybe you're younger and you still have kids at home. You want to make sure that your children are looked after, and maybe you can decide where they're going to go. Number four, it's a plan for distribution with legal binding documents. As I said, the will is a legal binding document. So that which you have put in your will is definitely legally binding. And that's important, especially when you are making some very big decisions when it comes to your estate. You know, you work so hard in life, you want to make sure that it is looked after. Number five, you get to decide where you want to give. You want to give to your children, you want to give to maybe OM Canada, or you want to give to your church. Okay, you get to decide that. Okay, but knowing how to do that. And number six is it gives you peace of mind, knowing that everything is going to be looked after. So moving on to this slide here. So this is just kind of knowing that you're able to print this off and you can kind of keep it for your records of what is taxed in an estate. Okay, so the primary residence currently at this time, it is not a taxed portion of your estate. Current governments are looking to try to change that, but and hopefully they don't. But at this point, it is a non-taxed item. Rental properties, if you are one who has some rental properties, those will be a taxable portion. For your knowledge, life insurance policies are not a taxed item on your estate. Okay, and actually life insurance policies, which I'm not going to really get too much into, is a great tool that I've seen people use for offsetting taxes on maybe cottages or rental properties in the future. It's also a great way to leave funds to charities as well. And you can do that by naming the charity as a beneficiary, which I'll touch on a little bit later. Cottages are taxed, okay? And if you think about it, some of these cottages, if you're here in Ontario in Muskoka, you know, some of these people who have bought these cottages back, you know, 20, 30 years ago, there's a big tax implication when it comes to those. And you should really be thinking about that, or and trying to figure out how you can keep it in the family without the children having to sell it due to the taxes that could occur on it due to the capital gains. Stocks and bonds, they are a taxed item of your estate. It's kind of just like right now, you sell a stock, if there's any capital gains, you would need to pay tax on that, which I will also touch on. RRSPs and RIFs are also a taxed item. I was reading in Maclean's magazine probably about a year ago now that they say that the average Canadian will die with approximately $100,000 still left in their RIF. And the government will be taxing that to the tune of, give or take 50 to 51%. So I usually like to tell people that they could very easily leave 50% of their RIF to charity, and technically it won't really affect what the children would receive. Coin and art collections can also be taxed as well, potentially. And as I've already answered the question, do they all get taxed the same? And as no, they do not. Okay, and it really depends also what province you're in. I'm not going to get into that. There's different taxes depending on what province. I recommend you can Google that or just let me know and I can find out for you. So what is the best way to give? Okay, so the best way that people can give, the most common way that people give right now is a dollar amount. I want to leave $10,000 to charity XYZ. Okay, and I wouldn't recommend that being the best way to give, only because you might be saying that now, and depending on how old you are, but if you live another 20, 30 years and your income might drop, it potentially, it might not balance. So it's always good to, I would suggest more on a percentage basis. I've met a lot of people that say, hey, I want to give a tithe. I want to give 10% to charity. Okay, and how you want to split that up would be up to you. But that's a safer way. So if in the last days you're paying for retirement, not retirement, but paying for assisted living or anything like that, and your income's dropping, it can drop pretty quickly at that point. That percentage would then balance it all out, and it might give you a little bit more peace of mind. This one is a really interesting one. You can designate part of your RRSP or your RIF. Now that wouldn't be writing that in your will, but you can name a beneficiary of your RRSP. So whoever's holding your RRSP, whether that is Sun Life or Investor Group or any kind of, whoever's dealing with your RIF or your RRSPs, you can actually name a charity there. Okay, and you can say 25%, you can say 50%, you can say 100%. But just to let you know, for your RIF or your RRSP, I know it's a little bit of, might not make a big difference, but if you name a charity specifically from there, that portion would not actually be part of probate. I know probate's a whopping 1.5%, but it's still something to consider. And it's also something that would then get to the charity a little bit quicker rather than waiting for all the ins and outs of the rest of the estate is being worked out. You can designate that also on your life insurance policy. So you can, the same thing, but again, life insurance is a non-taxable portion of your estate, so you wouldn't need to worry as much about the tax portion of that, obviously. You can leave property or assets as well to the charity, okay? But if you are naming a charity for the receiving of a property or an asset, I would recommend you contacting the charity and finding out if they what their gift acceptancy policy is, because some charities just because they can't handle or they don't have the know of how to sell a property, or just say it's 200 acres of wetlands in the middle of the prairies or something. They might not know how to handle that gift, so they might actually have in their policy that they do not receive those. So that's just a little bit of that information. So I'm going to move now. I am going to be moving a little quick. I apologize, just trying to be mindful of the time. But for letters of direction, this is something that Link Charity handles. Okay, and Link Charity offers a simple and effective solution by acting as a channel to receive estate gifts, RSPs, and RIFs by distributing the total proceeds to a multiple of charities in one letter of direction outlined by you. Okay, I'm going to kind of go over the slide and then I'll kind of break it down a little bit more. Naming Link Charity instead of multiple charities reduces the work of estate trustees dramatically. It creates a much greater flexibility in transferring assets, such as appreciated securities. It protects the donor's privacy, and a gift can be made anonymously if desired. It reduces probate fees, which can save hundreds and thousands of dollars potentially. It can be used on wills and bequests and RIFs and life insurance policies. And a change of a beneficiary is an easy process via change of letter of direction. So a letter of direction, okay, just to kind of give you an outline of what that is we have donors that will name, rather than naming 3 or 4 or 5 or 30 different charities in their will, which, just to let you know, not everyone knows this, is every person that you name in your will, every charity that you name in your will would be able to review the will, okay? Because they all have a legal ability to make sure that what they're getting is correct. So if you name 10 charities or 5 charities in your will, okay, all 5 of those charities would have to sign off on that will, giving the executor permission to distribute those funds, which can take months of time. Because either maybe one of the charities isn't used to that sort of gift, so it sits on the corner of their desk. B, it might get lost, or maybe someone's on vacation. But given naming one charity, which you can name as Link Charity, what we do is we allow you to name Link Charity on your will to handle whatever you plan on going to any of your charities. To answer probably one of the questions I got earlier, this means it can be to any one of the 85,000 charities that are within Canada. It technically doesn't have to be a member charity, okay? And we understand that most people who are giving to one charity usually are giving to more than one, right? They might be giving to their church, and they might be giving to OM Canada, and they might have other things that are on their heart to give to. So it's a lot of times, most people are giving to more than one different charity within their estate. Now, the nice thing is also about a letter of direction is if, just say in 10 years, your heart's desire has changed. Maybe you switch churches. This is exactly the case I'm in right now. I don't go to the church that I actually have in my will. And my wife and I my wife keeps saying, we got to do something about this. And I understand it's a matter of getting it changed, but I need to go to a lawyer and I got to make that change, which is going to cost me money. And so I know the next time I'm going to put Link Charity in there, okay, which then if I ever do make any changes, I don't need to go through a lawyer anymore. I can just send an email or send a letter to Link Charity saying, I'd like to change my beneficiaries from my letter of direction. And it gets changed, and then you don't have to do anything else. It's now set. A letter of direction would allow you to also be a little bit more specific on how you want your gift to be distributed. So you can say, well, here is $100,000, and I'd like you to distribute to these 4 charities $5,000 once a year until the money runs out. And then we would manage that for you and look after it and do it as you wish. Just to let you know, when it comes to costs, okay, because that was one of the questions, so I'm hoping to hit some of these before the end. So if it's a straight in and out over at Link Charity, this is actually something we do completely free. So if you name Link Charity in your will, the funds will come to us, and we would then send it to the charities that you so desired, completely free of charge. If it is something in the more complicated, or not complicated, but more specific on us holding on to parts of the funds, we would actually invest those funds to make sure that it can make some money. And then we would usually, at this moment, it would be a 0.5% that we use as a management fee for the years that we have those funds. But if you want to go deeper into that, we can do that at a later time. But a letter of direction can be used for just about anything in terms of dealing with your RSPs or your RIFs, or dealing with your securities, okay? So a gift of securities, moving on again to the next topic, okay? Gift of securities was back in the 1990s, Finance Minister Paul Martin made the most dramatic changes in favor of charitable givings in the history of Canada, okay? Making it so that when you are donating a gift of securities, meaning a stock or a mutual fund, okay, gifts of securities that have appreciated would receive an extra tax savings incentive to the donor so that they can give more. That means that it would eliminate any capital gains, okay, which I will break down, I promise. However, of the 85,000 registered charities in Canada, relatively a few that have required brokerages accounts to receive such a gift. I do believe OM does have the ability to handle gifts of securities for when I was talking with Andrew. So you can always talk to Andrew about that. I will let you know that as of 2021, the giving of these securities surpass cash gifts as the #1 way to give to charities in Canada. People are really starting to understand, and especially because the market has been good over the last couple of years, that if you have, for an example, here, let me go to the next slide. Here we go. Benefits. So the benefit, it entitles you, the donor, to a donation receipt for the full value, so the resale of their contribution. The gift would result in a non-refundable tax credit that will reduce their income taxes. They can use it in the year of the gift or carry it forward for up to an additional 5 years. So that's talking about the receipt. If you get a charitable receipt that you can't use all of, you can actually use up to 5 additional years. It's a great way to wipe out capital gains, for none would occur for the donation. So here's the example, okay? And you can, for those of you who don't deal with investments, I apologize, but this is really good information for those who do. Joe has some shares of XYZ, or let's say Tesla stocks, that he would like to donate. He purchased them for $10,000. They are now worth $100,000, okay? Upon an in-kind donation, meaning that you are donating this gift to charity without selling it. So that's the big thing. You can't sell it and then donate. You have to donate it in kind, okay? upon in-kind donation of these shares, Joe would receive a charitable tax receipt for $100,000, which would result in approximately $45,000, which is almost half of his donation in tax savings. Okay, which means Joe pays no tax on the $90,000 of capital gains. So how capital gains quickly works, just so that, just in case you don't know. So you paid $10,000, it's now worth $100,000. Okay, that means there's $90,000 of capital gains, and you would have to show half of that, so $45,000. If you sold it, you would have to show it as income on your taxes, and then you'd pay tax on it. But that would be wiped out if you just donated that to the charity. Okay. It's a little different doing it over Zoom than in person, because people would nod their heads, but that's okay. Gifts of securities. So a gift of public securities must be donated in kind, as I mentioned, in order to qualify for eliminating gains. Be sure that the donor's broker, so make sure that your broker doesn't sell them before transferring them to the charity. And like this says, your broker may be at a disadvantage because there would be no commission for him on the transfer. So sometimes you need to be a little bit more on top of this gift. Okay, but there's such a reward, there's such a greater benefit, so it's worth the extra effort. Okay, and I would say if you are donating just to OM Canada, like I mentioned, you can contact Andrew. But if you are looking at maybe doing a larger donation, you can use Link Charity. And Link Charity, because of our name, Link, you can actually name 2-3 different charities with one transaction, so that you can lower the fees if you are using more than one charity. Okay. And this is just a tidbit of information at the bottom. The donor still has the right to buy back the stock later in order to reset the purchase price. Well, I'm just going to take 1 second just to explain that. So just say you have Bell stock, okay? And you bought it years ago, and it's had incredible capital gains. And just say you knew that you wanted to give a $10,000 gift to, just say, OM Canada. But you really don't want to get rid of your Bell stocks because they've done so well for you. But I would then suggest to you to maybe consider selling or donating in kind $10,000 worth of shares of your Bell stock, okay, wipe out the capital gains, and then repurchase with the $10 cash, the $10,000 cash that you got from, your tax return or what have you. And now just say your Bell stock, when you first bought them, were $10 a share, and they're now $100 a share. Okay, now you've kind of reset the price. So now anything over and above $100 is going to be capital gains, but anything that's in line with the $100 in the future would not be part of that capital gains. All right. Now to get on to charitable gift annuities. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about, just because they're so beneficial. They're not only beneficial for the charities, okay, but they're so beneficial to those who take them out. And I wouldn't recommend them if they wouldn't benefit you, okay? So you've probably heard of annuities, just annuities, maybe an insured annuity through a bank, okay? This works a little bit different. I will touch on the differences, okay, because sometimes people get, they can question, okay, I've heard about annuities, I didn't really care about those. So I want you to just open your mind to allow me to explain a charitable gift annuity, which is different. Okay, so much like an annuity, a charitable gift annuity will give you a guaranteed income for life. You can create an annuity either as a joint or a single life. So you can take it out just yourself or with your spouse. It gives very generous rates of return, which I will touch on. Investment is outside of the estate. This is probably one of the big things. So just say now I've talked to you about a will. I've talked to you about the importance of charity within your will. And maybe you started thinking, you know what, I can see myself wanting to leave something to my favorite charities in my will. Okay, well, then you start figuring out, okay, well, I can see myself leaving at least $100,000 to charity from my estate. Okay, well, rather than that money just sitting in a GIC, making a whopping 1.5 or maybe less, okay, or sitting in a savings account, okay, or maybe you just don't want it sitting in the stock market anymore because it is volatile, okay. This money can then be put into a charitable gift annuity, and that $100,000 per se would be outside of your estate, meaning that your estate would look smaller. Your estate would now look $100,000 smaller, which means that there's less tax, meaning less probate. Okay. And the nice thing about it is you don't need to manage the investment. I didn't write any jokes into this presentation, but if I did, I'd say it's here, where I'd say that it's like the George Foreman grill. If you guys ever remembered the George Foreman grill, you set it and you forget it. And that's kind of what an annuity is. You put it in and then you don't have to worry about it. So this is how it works, okay? And I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So I am going to kind of follow this slide here. You have a set amount that you are planning to give to charity when the Lord calls you home, or when you pass away, or when you die, and you are willing to invest it now, okay? When placing it into an annuity, you will receive a rate of return that will never change. You will also receive a one-time 20% approximately, it's sometimes a little bit more, charitable receipt from the initial investment. Meaning if you put in $20,000, you get a $4,000 charitable receipt, okay? I'll also say that the rate never changes, meaning that the rate that you get quoted will never go up, it will never go down, it will stay the same, you'll get the same payment every single year. But because of that, you're also, it is also irrevocable, meaning that you could never take the money out either. So this is an investment in which you'd put in and you basically don't have to worry about. You will get payments until the Lord calls you home, but that's it, okay? And then when the Lord does call you home, whatever is remaining would be then sent to the charities of your choice. You will be able to decide on the payment schedule of either quarterly, monthly, semi-annually, or annually, based on a minimum $20,000 investment or more. Why I mentioned the $20,000, if you do put in less than $20,000, generally we can only do semi-annual or annual, okay? But that's just a side note. You can pick the month in which you want your first payment to be received. Lastly, some or all would be tax-free, okay? Which I'm gonna bring up a quote or two just so that you can see what I mean by that. But right now, if that money is in a GIC, you're making a whopping 1.5%. That 1.5%, you have to claim it on your taxes, and then you got to pay tax on that 1.5%. So really, it's not even 1.5%. Where with a charitable gift annuity, generally, depending on your age, a good portion of it, meaning good portion, I'm talking 90% or more, is completely tax-free income, so that you don't even have to claim it as income. So, and at the time of death, the remaining amount goes to charity or charities of your choice. Okay, and just to give you an idea of Linked Charities' reputation, generally, even after 10 to 15 years of people who have taken out these charitable gift annuities, we see an estimated of 89 to 93% of the annuities still being there to be transferred to the charity or charities of their choice. I have personally seen over 100%. So the person had their annuity for 5 years. They passed away unexpectedly, but their charity that they designated it to actually got more than the initial value based on Link Charities' prudent and good investment strategies. Okay. Questions about annuities. Most common questions: at what age can I take an annuity out? Because I'm sure all of you guys are just begging to find out. And 65 is that age that an annuity can be purchased. Okay. Generally speaking, 65 is a good age. It's usually between 75 and 77 years old that your annuity would basically be completely tax-free income. Okay. Who do you do this with? You can do it with Link Charity Canada. And OM Canada, as a member charity, is bringing this information to you. Can annuities be purchased through a bank? And as I mentioned, yes, those are called reinsured annuities. Okay. I wouldn't personally recommend them. Okay. I only say that because generally speaking, the remaining amount of an annuity done through a bank is less than 50%. Okay. And the reason, well, I don't know the exact reason, probably the main reason is banks are out to make money. And when the bank gets the annuity from you, they actually sell it to an insurance company that now manages it. And the insurance company, what do they want to do? That's right. They want to make money. So Link Charity's interest is to make sure that the largest amount of funds goes to the charity while providing a guaranteed income to the person who takes out the annuity while they're alive. Can the remaining amount be left to only one charity? Note, this vehicle has enabled us to help donors link their charities together, which means you don't have to take out 3-4 annuities and name a different charity on each one. You can take out one and then name all 4 and split it up however you want. Okay, I will let you know that most people who do take out an annuity are, they usually 2-3 years later will generally take out another one just because they see how beneficial it is. And I will do a little side caveat too, that right now, this is all governed by the Canadian bond rate, the rates of return. And the Canadian bond rate, if you listen to the news, is extremely good right now. I think we're at around a 2.44%. So due to that, that actually adjusts what we can quote. Okay. So I'm going to go over 2 examples. Okay. I hope everyone can see this. So at the top, it says this is a single life annuity for a male who was born October 29, 1946. I just pulled that out of the air. Okay. And really, to get a quote from Link Charity, all we need to know is the year you're born, because it doesn't matter if you're born in January of 1946 or December of 1946. It goes by how old you'll be by the end of that year. Oh, I went too far. Okay. This is showing a $50,000 donation. Okay, it's called a donation. You're donating this $50,000 and putting it into a charitable gift annuity. This is showing that the donation would receive an immediate charitable receipt for $10,000. I'm just moving along down the screen so you can follow along. This is showing a rate of return for this single male of 76, getting a rate of 6.28, which is a fantastic rate. This is a rate that you're not going to find at any bank. Okay. Again, these annuities are all governed under the Annuitant Association of Canada. So anyone that is offering charitable gift annuities are all using the same quoting system, just to let you know. Okay. But this rate, it all depends on how old you are and what have you. So this is showing a monthly payment, okay, because this fictitious person picked monthly. So they're going to get a monthly payment for the rest of their life of $261.65. And the big thing at the very bottom, if you look on the left, it says non-taxable portion of the total annual payment is 100%. Okay, so 100% of this is tax-free. That means that this $3,000 that they're going to receive every year, guaranteed for the rest of their life, is going to be tax-free. They never have to claim it. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. This is a joint annuity. Okay, now because females tend to live longer, it does adjust the rate a little bit. Okay, but this is for a male who is 82 years old and a female who is 81 years old. Okay, and it is a joint to survivor, meaning if the husband passes away, it doesn't change anything. The wife will continue to receive payments until the Lord calls her home. Okay, which is kind of peace of mind for some of us men who always want to make sure that our wives are going to be looked after. So this is also showing, again, a $50,000 donation total, okay, with a charitable receipt, again, of $10,000, which you can apply to your taxes that current year. And this is giving a rate of 5.70, okay? Again, a very good rate. And this is showing a quarterly payment of $702.42. And again, showing complete tax-free income of $2,849.68, which again would never change. You'd continually receive that for the rest of your life or lives. Okay. Now, I hope this has at least given you the whet your appetite to at least want to know more. If you went onto our website in the future, I do have a whole bunch more of examples just on a little bit of a spreadsheet. But I really do encourage you, even if you want to contact me in the future, just to find out what is my annuity rate, you know, just out of curiosity. Okay, it's zero pressure. Okay, really, I just want you to be able to see what your rate is and how you can help your charities in the future. But this is a great way to do it. Okay, moving on from charitable gift annuities is our donor advised funds, or otherwise known as a DAF. A donor advised fund allows you to set up an investment fund that in turn can make regular gifts to your favorite charities for a set period of time or generations to come. Meaning that even if the Lord calls you home and you still had funds in that donor advised fund, we can still follow your letter of direction, okay, to then distribute funds for years to come, okay? You can even get your children involved in your donor advised fund. Again, I can't go into everything because it would take much too long. A donor advised fund, the first one was done in 1952. However, it wasn't until the 90s that they really became prominent in the giving sector. Donor advised funds are like charitable savings accounts or a charitable foundation, okay? I think the word foundation has scared some people away from ever starting a foundation, mainly because you need to get a board of directors, you got to file the charitable receipts and this and that. This is basically like a like a charitable foundation without all those logistics. Okay, you can contribute to the fund as frequently as you like and watch your charitable investments grow tax-free. Okay, you would receive immediate tax benefits, and you can recommend donations to your favorite charities whenever you're ready. Similar but different from a charitable or private foundation. As I mentioned, DAFs are ideal for those who have always wanted to set up a charitable foundation in order to be strategic. in giving and create a legacy, but feel the cost and burden of setting up a registered foundation is too great or just too much work. So in essence, by setting up a donor advised fund, think of yourself as the CEO of a small foundation without all the expense. Okay. Donor advised funds give you some opportunities. You get immediate tax benefits. So maybe you sold a business and you're about to get hit with some big capital gains, but you know that you want to leave some money to offset some of those taxes by a charitable gift, but you don't know exactly where you want to give it or how you want to do it yet, but you can throw it immediately into a donor advised fund at Linked Charity and you'll get a single tax receipt. I have seen people who very generous people who maybe name 5 to 10 different people in a year to different charities. Well, rather than trying to collect 10 different receipts every year, they throw that amount into a donor advised fund and we give them one receipt and then they just tell us where they want it to go throughout the year. It allows you to give anonymously. Okay, some people don't want to everyone knowing that they're giving a gift, especially if it's a larger gift. You know, they don't want their names on the walls and all those other things. So they'll say, can you please send it to them anonymously? That's something that we also help with. Significant cost savings when compared to private or registered foundations. Ability to contribute non-cash assets as appreciated securities. So now you can donate securities and add them to your donor advised fund. Continued investment or contributions over time. So this can be almost like I mentioned, a charitable bank account. You can put money in, you can take money out, meaning out as in send money to your charities, but you can go with the flow of the stock market. So when things are high, you can start throwing some money into your donor advised fund and then contribute it maybe more in your giving time. Continued investment of contributions over time. So the money doesn't just sit at Linked Charity. We actually manage it with our pool of funds, which is roughly around $70 million right now. So we make sure that as we're making money off the funds, that is contributed to your investment as well. And it's tax-free growth. You don't get a receipt for that interest we make off it, but you can dictate where you want that interest to go, which is a big benefit. Easy management of gifts and grants. Someone else takes care of all the administrative headaches. Okay, I'm just touching at almost an hour. So final thoughts. Question to you. Can you see how Linked Charity can help you? Can you see how a letter of direction can really maybe make your estate a lot easier? Can you see how a charitable gift annuity might benefit you by giving you stable income coming in each month or every year? Can you see how donating securities can really offset some of those capital gains that you don't want to worry about, or you're almost not sure if you should sell because you're going to get hit up with this extra income? So can Linked Charity help you? Have you ever thought of donating securities? Have you ever thought that that might be a better way to give? Based on what I said about annuities, can you see yourself wanting to find out what your rate is? Do you have a will? That's a big question. Do you have a will? If you don't have a will, if you take anything out of this entire thing, this presentation, please get a will. It's very important to you and for your loved ones. Or do you have to update your will recently? The older you get, the more you should be looking at your will, to the point of when you're hitting 80 years old, you should almost be reviewing your will once a year because things start changing very rapidly. Has this caused you to think more about charitable giving rather than government giving? And what can that look like? Okay. As you can tell, I was never once saying, hey, you should give everything to charity. But how can you give more to your charities rather than government? I'm assuming all of us would rather see your taxed money going to digging wells or planting churches or helping missionaries rather than paving roads, paying government or funding abortion clinics. Okay, we don't get to say how the government spends your tax dollars from your estate, so it's something that you should be looking at. I'll just leave my contact information up. If you do have any questions, any concerns, I ask that you would contact me at any time.
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Rob. I believe this has been really beneficial to everyone, and it's caused us to think or even to come up with more questions. It's really amazing to see the services that Link Charity can offer to everyone who really gives to various charities or even just to one charity. So for those that would like to stay on a little bit longer, we will be having a time for you in just a moment to ask some more questions about this presentation or about planned giving in general. Let me first introduce you to John Haddock. John, who is with us today, he is serving on the board of OM Canada, as well as on the board of Link Charity. And John has been answering questions from partners on the topic of planned giving for a number of years now. And if you ever wish to speak to someone at OM to talk about planned giving, then this gentleman might just be on the other line. And it's great to see you here, John. And if you don't mind keeping your screen on now, maybe the three of us can go through some of the questions that may have been asked at this time. If you want to ask any further questions, there is a Q&A button at the bottom, or you can simply type them into the chat box too. That's fine. And some questions may have been answered throughout Rob's presentation, as he has said. There's one question that has come in. Does Link Charity have plans to accept gifts in cryptocurrency? I think this would be a question directed to you, Rob.
The short answer is no, not at this time. This is a question that I have been hearing more than once over the last year as it's started to become a little bit more popular. At this time, we are not accepting cryptocurrency. It is definitely something that, because of its growing nature, should be something that we do look into for the future, but I don't have a timeline at all of when that would happen.
Great. Okay, thank you, Rob. Well, if there are no further questions, then that means that either you've done a great job and you've covered all the topics, or people are really trying to gather all the information together. I see one more question has just come in. Can one designate charity outside of Canada?
Again, the short answer is yes, but it really depends on the charity. Okay, there are a few universities in the United States at which they would accept and we would be able to distribute funds to. So like Calvin College, or and there's a few other Christian universities out there in which we would be able to, but for the most part, the answer is no. There's not a lot of charities. They would have to be one of the 85,000 that are in Canada. That's why there's a lot of US charities that also have a Canadian arm. So if there is a charity that you're thinking of, try to see if they have a Canadian arm, meaning that they have a charitable number within Canada as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good to know.
But one of the questions that were sent prior is, do they need to be a member of Link Charity? And the answer is no to that. I think I covered that, but if you do have a charity in mind, they do not have to be a membered charity. It can be any registered charity within Canada.
Good, right.
Does the letter of direction supersede the will? I'm going to say no. And I'm only going to say no. Maybe John might know, but I believe that the will is a legal document. This is something that a lawyer generally is setting up. So if you have a letter of direction with linked charity, but the will is different than the letter of direction for whatever reason, I believe that the executor would have to follow what the will says, not what the letter of direction says.
I agree, Rob.
Okay, thanks, John.
Okay, is there any other questions? I'll leave it for one more minute open.
I'm
However,
can I answer one of the questions on the email that you sent me?
yeah. I thought that most have been covered, but maybe I've left one or two out. I'm sorry.
Well, just in case, I just want to make sure that they don't go away wondering. So say I promise an asset such as a house. Who knows about it? OM or the charity? The lawyer, the bank? And do I then need to update my will to align with this bequest? So what happens if the will and the promise to Link Charity Canada are not aligned? So I think that's the first part of the initial question that I last answered. But you need to have in your will or in your letter of direction. So so in your will, you can say what you want used for the donation. So if you say, I want, $500,000, I'm only using that number because the average house cost in Canada is between 500 and 700,000 now. So you want to leave $500,000 to charity, and you can say, I want those proceeds to come from the sale of my house. I personally might not recommend that, and you can talk to your financial advisor about donating the house because that's a non-taxable item. You might want to consider thinking if you do have any RSPs, which is a high tax item of your estate, or maybe you want to consider saying, I would like, $100,000 of my highest appreciated securities to be sent to Link Charity to be then following the letter of direction. So the will doesn't need to state that you have a letter of direction. You're sending those funds to a charity, which is Link Charity, and we have the letter of direction. But where you want those funds to come from within your estate, you need to have that laid out. And you should talk to your financial advisor to find out your exact estate plan, and maybe you want to try to eliminate as much tax as possible through those charitable givings. So giving a non-taxable item might not be the best. So I hope that's a long answer to this question.
That's great. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, looking at those questions that were sent prior to us, would you also say that we've covered those?
Maybe we'll just look at number 4 for a minute. Fees are a big thing, okay? And I'm really, really proud of our fee structure at Link Charity because I haven't found another charity like ours that is cheaper than us. So the question is, does this only work if the charities have an agreement with Link Charity, which I've already answered. Also, does Link Charity get paid by the charity? For example, I bequeath $1,000 to OM through Link Charity. How much does OM actually get after? So in terms of a bequeath, if you are sending $1,000 from your estate to Link Charity to go to OM, that would be a straight shot. It would be automatically just transferred from us to them. If you're only naming OM in your will, then maybe you would just continue just to send it directly to OM, because then, well, it's just going to OM. Link Charity, it would be more, unless you are not wanting OM to see the rest of the details of your estate, which is fine, that's respectable too, then you can use Link Charity and we can do that transfer. In terms of other fees, just say you want to donate securities through Link Charity. Okay, we have a check fee of $25. Okay, and if you name 2, 3, 4, 10 other charities, each one of those are only at $10 each. So we try to make sure that the largest amount is going to the charity. So that's the answer to that one.
Great, thank you, Rob. I can't see any further questions right now, but if anyone can think of questions after this webinar, then I'm sure Rob or John or I will be able to speak with you, to connect with you, either over the phone or through email. We'd be happy to help you. You can also visit our website at om.org, and there you will find and you can download more information on planned giving as well. And once you receive a copy of this webinar and you know of someone else that can benefit from that, feel free to pass it on to them as well, and they can go through this webinar and hear about the benefits of planned giving. Contact information of both OM Canada and Link Charity will be shown on a slide right after we close here today. So thank you once again, Rob. Thanks, John, as well, for joining us today. And a big thank you to everyone for participating, for joining us today, wherever you are at. And thank you so much for partnering with OM Canada. May God bless you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.